Now that our piece is leather hard again, even this coil here is leather hard, we can proceed to the cleanup phase. Now you can see our pinch pots here are fairly rough. We've got this coil here, we've got scratching, we've got cracks along the surface. We're going to go ahead and clean this up before we start the next phase of making our whistle. Now, a great tool for taking off excess amounts of clay is a Surform. It looks a lot like a cheese grater blade, and you can buy these with the handle. I prefer to use them without the handle just because they're easier for me to handle, but either way you choose to use it is perfectly fine. And what we want to do is with the tooth, just lightly bring that over the clay, and you can see how easily that's taking off that excess material. And notice where our seam was here, because we pressed that clay in there, there's no seam visible. We don't have any indentations or cracking along that seam because we were careful and we scratched and scored and slipped it. So I'm going to go all the way around, clean up this excess clay around the seam. You need to tap the clay off, that's perfectly fine. This is one of the reasons I prefer to use this tool without the handle, because I can simply tap off the excess clay and I don't have to worry about it filling the handle. So I'm going to go all the way around my form and just very gently carve off some of this excess clay. And this will leave tooth marks in the clay, and that's okay because we're going to use our metal scraper in a minute to refine this shape further. And you can pick it up, move it around, whatever you need to do to get at all the edges of your form that you need to. Now remember, your clay form is only about 1/4 of an inch thick. We don't want to carve off so much that we carve right through the form unless that's specifically your intention. And there are times when we will do that. But for this project, if you want to make a whistle, we don't want to carve through that form yet because we want to be very careful where we place those tone holes. Okay. Now you'll see I've roughly refined the form. I've got most of the excess marks off. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my sheet metal scraper and I'm just going to very gently run it over the curves and clean this up a little farther. Get rid of some of those tooth marks. Now if you find that after you have scraped your form that it's still a little too soft, see this is pretty soft still, you can wait a little bit before refining it further. And in fact this might be a little soft just yet. But what you're doing is just gently carving back this excess clay, making sure you get rid of all those excess tooth marks. And when you have your form cleaned up to your liking, we can proceed to the next step of making the whistle.